check, have a chance to play, right? Like
I was making $425 a week.
right.
I mean, I got sent down to Nashville, and I was a healthy scratch for the first 10 games. I remember I got on our first bus ride down to Tallahassee to play against the Tiger Sharks, and we had a full squad, pretty solid older guys, Dixon Ward, bunch of other veteran guys, right? And I was the guy that I was sleeping at the front with our bus driver's nickname was Snake. He was wearing a Scorpions leather jacket, cut off sleeves. No joke, I'm not lying. But I was lying on the stairs as the Greyhound bus, as you can get off. I was sleeping on those stairs, and healthy scratch. But no, I was, back to your word, grateful. I was playing pro hockey, and I wasn't giving up.
That was former NHLer, IHLer, AHLer, and East Coast Hockey League Hall of Famer Glen Metropolit, and you are listening to the Up My Hockey Podcast with Jason Podolak.
Just watch me now.
Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolak, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolak, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. All right, welcome back to the Up My Hockey Podcast with Jason Podolak. I am your host, Jason Podolak, and today we are at episode 87. And do I have a treat for you? Our guest today is none other than Glen Metropolit. Glen Metropolit is born in 1978. And his hockey story is absolutely fantastic. Lots of adjectives to describe it: inspiring, unlikely, courageous, lengthy. The list goes on and on. But Glen has an unlikely story, mostly because of his upbringing, where he started, which we get into. In the projects, as he called it in Toronto, not playing competitive structured hockey really almost his entire youth, and playing where he could for free, and ended up getting into Junior A league, getting recognized because of his performance, because he was a hell of a player, moving on to the pro ranks, and working his way up from league to league to league, eventually the NHL, and a 400-game NHL career. There isn't many leagues that Glen never played in. He played till he was 42, a 22-year professional career. He played in Germany. He played in Switzerland. He played in Finland. He played in the IHL, the Old International Hockey League, the AHL. He played in the East Coast Hockey League, where he played 2 seasons there to start off, and he is now an East Coast Hockey League Hall of Famer. Again, in the NHL, this man has played in a lot of different places. He played in the Spangler Cups representing Canada. And every place he went, he performed. Every place he went, he contributed. And as one of those guys who wasn't a high draft prospect or wasn't considered to be slotted in on a depth chart anywhere, he earned everything that he got. He had to play the game the right way. He had to be a good teammate. He had to get things done on the ice. He couldn't take nights off, because nights off for him meant demotion or meant something else. It's not like he got 9 lives everywhere he went. And yeah, I just love his story. It's super inspirational. He's somebody that I thought was a fantastic player when I had the opportunity to play against him in the AHL. We faced off against each other when he was with the Portland Pirates, and I was in Lowell. A very creative player, played hard-nosed. He was gritty, had a great hockey IQ, and could really get things done. And to watch him progress up the ranks, and like I said, to play over 400 games in the NHL, essentially, I believe the majority of his games started when he was 32 years old. Which, again, a highly unlikely story. So we talked to Glen today for over an hour. He's now coaching in Switzerland, which we get into, but tons of great lessons here. And yeah, I'm just really honored to share today's guest, Mr. Glen Metropolit. Enjoy. All right, well, here we are for episode 87 with Glen Metropolit. You guys have heard the introduction, a lengthy pro career. I've been chasing Metro down now for, geez, how long has it been, Metro? Like, we've been talking about this for probably a year now, I think. And
Yeah, bro, about a year probably.
Yeah, I love the official honor of being able to welcome you to the podcast. So thanks for being here, partner.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm happy to be here finally.
Yeah. And I guess just for context, maybe you can let people know where you are right now and what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm actually over in Switzerland in the National League, the top league. I'm assistant coach with HC Davos. We're the team. They had their 100th year anniversary last year. I wasn't a part of that. This is my first year, but it's home of the Spengler Cup. People probably know in Canada where the European Canadians come, put a team together, and we play over Christmas. So we're the host team.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you and we'll get to your career, but you definitely had some experience there in the Swiss League, and there's some names that I want to talk about too in your time there. But how is let's start with where you're at right now, just with the whole coaching aspect. I mean, long playing career, like into your 40s, which is a absolute remarkable thing to say at the level you are still playing at. But was that something that you knew that you were going to get into? Like after the playing was done, I'm going to be behind the bench.
I tell you the truth, Jay. I was my last 4 years in Europe. I separated with my ex, and my kids were back in Florida, and I had enough. 22-year career, and I wanted to go home to Destin, Florida, the North Panhandle there, and kind of be with the kids. So. That was my plan. I had a gym that I was running. I was a TRX instructor, trying to build that, franchise it, and then doing some NHL alumni stuff, a couple tours across Canada, charity events and stuff. And then finally I realized I got the itch again. I had a couple years off, and then it was like, man, it's in my fiber. So.
And how did you approach that? Like, how was that?
Yeah.
I know even me, what I'm doing now, and I'm getting involved with teams, and then the guests that I find, and I'm kind of revisiting this network of over 15 years ago, or what a 15-year hockey career can do. Is that sort of what you were doing, picking up the phone and just letting people know that you were interested?
Well, no. What happened was I was up near Pensacola Ice Flyers. I played in East Coast there, the Ice Pilots. So long story short, Tampa Bay Lightning were up there doing like a school visit, go and teach kids how to play hockey and stuff like that. And they're like, hey, Metro, you played a couple of games. Do you want to come and shoot a ball around with the kids? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not, So that kind of just got the ball rolling a little bit with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And then doing a few camps, I went down to Tampa. And then I had full custody of my son, Max, and he was going into grade 9. So I was like, what, let's get down to Tampa, get back into hockey. The grassroots. And so we made the move down there, which was a 6-hour drive from Destin. The girls stayed with my ex, and they commuted, but Max and I went down to so I started coaching high school hockey, doing some player development stuff on the side, and then kind of just grew from there. I was coaching the lead high school hockey team, showcase team, and then I was head of an academy in Tampa. And then my days in Mannheim in the DL, one of my last years there was a skills coach, Andrew Leach. I'm probably butchering up his name, but anyway, he was coaching with Team Turkey. Oddly enough, they play hockey in Turkey, and he was like, Metro, do you want to come and you were good on the power play? Why don't you come and kind of help Team Turkey? And I'm like, oh man, great, no problem. Yeah, I'm in this world now. You know what I mean? And COVID happened. 2 years went by. He was older and rest in peace, but he ended up passing. So I carried on. I went to the World Championships with Team Turkey, Division III championships, which was pretty interesting. And we went there, had a good tournament, and then I got back and I was like, no, what? I gotta shake the bushes here and call my agent and see if there's anything available out there. And so there's a few teams, and HC Davos was one of them. The assistant coach went back to Sweden. And I called Jan Alston. I don't know if you ran across Jan in Mannheim or whatever, across European hockey here. Yeah. So he's the GM. I knew the assistant, the defensive coach, Walter Immonen. He was in Finland with me and in Zug. and I knew the head coach a little bit. So I was like, man, let me have a little Zoom interview with them. And I did it, not really knowing. I kind of just open talk, talking hockey and my thoughts on defensive zone coverage, power play, and sure enough, kind of they're like, yeah, we'd love for you to kind of hop on board with the squad. And I'm like, okay, great, let's do it. And here we are now. I'm hockey found me again, and I'm really stoked.
That's exciting, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild, right? Like, I saw the laundry list of teams, right? Like when you're up and down, like, and I can relate, like there's so many people that you have touched, right? Like in one way or another, whether it be coaches or players or, I saw that you played with Jared Bednar. I saw that you played with Nat Domicelli, like these guys that have moved on to do different things. And it's nuts, right? Like, and people remember good teammates and good people. So it's nice. I mean, I've been blessed that Bedsy's been on my show a couple times, and like these players, it's just cool. Like the hockey family's cool, and that's really how it happens. That network of what you've done in the past and who now, and then helps open doors and opportunities. So good on you for being there. That's fantastic. I want to know more about Turkey though. Like what would a D3 World Championship hockey, like what does that hockey look like?
Well, first of all, I flew into Istanbul, so I felt like I was in a movie from Taken or something. You know what I mean? I'm just like, whoa. But anyway, I go to Istanbul for a week. I was really surprised by the individual talent of the players, the skill level, in practice. I was like, wow, man, okay, these guys are pretty good. But, we did power play for a week, worked on certain stuff, break-ins, entries, exits. And then sure enough, we get to the game. It was just the processing. They couldn't process it well enough. They're skilled, but it was the processing and the IQ was kind of where they lacked. But, putting on that jersey, that what they were wearing for the country, they had so much pride, and it was just tight-knit group. It was quite an experience, man.
That is cool.
Yeah.
Who else is it? Like, what's a D3 country in that? Like, who are the countries that are there?
Who else was? Luxembourg was one. Who's the Arabs? Not Dubai. What? Emirates. They're one. Who else do we have? I'm drawing a blank here, buddy.
No
Luxembourg. There was. I can't forget right now.
So it's not even like it wouldn't be
Taiwan. Taiwan was a team. Yeah, you can imagine that.
BCJ would be better hockey than that.
I think it'd probably be equivalent. Yeah, probably BCJ would be better. Yeah, maybe, but probably give him a good game.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. And what do you mean? Yeah, that's when I ended up in Mannheim, as you ended up in Mannheim. I was there for 3 or 4 years. Like. Sounds like it was kind of like when I went over for the first time, it was in hopes of kind of resurrecting my NHL, prospects, right? I thought that I was kind of getting looked over and maybe was becoming less of a player, and I wanted to get back in touch with being offensive and everything else and sort of reinvent myself and come back. Sounds like that's sort of what you did. But when I went over there, it was like, holy smokes, like the hockey was good. It was fun. I found a passion for it again. I was seeing a part of the world that I would never have saw otherwise. It was just, it was quite an experience to say the least. And I can imagine, being in Turkey, maybe not to the same extent, but I mean, you're seeing a spot of the world in a way you never would have seen it otherwise, right?
Oh yeah, totally. It was a different world. It was definitely a different world. You're in Istanbul, so we did a week there, but great host. I mean, there's, it was really, I was there just do hockey. I had a couple of days to kind of do the boat rides and stuff like that and see the city. But besides that, that's where it ended. We did that and we went to Luxembourg for 2 weeks. So
what do you think that is? You mentioned hockey IQ. So I had an opportunity to play in Japan as well. And I can totally relate to what you're saying there. Like, I thought the Japanese players on an individual level were good players. They were fast and they could shoot a puck and, they could play. But I felt, in that environment, like they hadn't learned the game. I felt like the way that I had learned it. So, some of the plays that you make that are just instinctive that maybe you don't necessarily know that the guy is there, but he should be there. Like I found myself at the beginning making plays like that and they weren't there, So do you think that's like an upbringing thing, like the way the game's taught there, or because they seem to have the skill level? Like how do you make that more of a complete team or more of a complete player?
I think over there, there's not a lot of hockey players. Hockey's not really looked at as a sport, big sport there. So the talent pool is pretty short, and ice time. So for us, we just grew up on the ice all day, all day, all night type thing. So with the IQ part, back to what you're saying, that they all knew how to play the game or their skill level, but the hockey reads weren't there. I think it's more or less just doing a lot of reps, small area games, and that's kind of the path. But they're passionate though. They're watching hockey highlights and stuff like that. I was like, okay, right on, So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the start for you. I read a pretty powerful article that CBC was a part of, which I didn't know. And just for those listening, and we'll touch on Vernon, but I knew you from Vernon originally because I'm from Vernon, right? So then we had that connection there. Not that we played against each other necessarily, but you were a Vernon Laker, and coming from Toronto and had a great season here. Can you talk about growing up? And when I mean growing up, I mean like the roots, because a lot of times I have guys in the program and there's so many different routes, like you've mentioned a little off camera, and we were talking there for 2 minutes about your journey, and some guys' journey, they're the star of the team the whole way, and it's easy, and they're best in the area, and the top round draft pick, and some guys are average players on the minor league teams, and so can you talk about yourself growing up, the part of the area that you grew up, and what hockey, what hockey was like for you from the minor hockey level?
Yeah, well, I guess we can go all the way back to where, raised by a single mom. I was kind of raised in the projects downtown Toronto. I think it was the first inner city, so to speak, in Canada, called Regent Park. So growing up, single mom, all the kids played hockey a little bit, outdoor ball hockey and stuff. And I really caught on a little bit early. My mom brought me out to play some hockey, and it started there at a rink called Moss Park. It was a free league. Got some equipment, went down there and played. And then you kind of grow up in the inner city, and it's expensive to play hockey, obviously. So I always played rec hockey growing up. I never really could travel. Whenever I traveled, I'd have to go on my own. I'd hop on the transit where I'd take the bus on my own, with a hockey bag, rush hour with my stick, and trying to move my way in on a streetcar, subway. But I was getting hockey. So it started there, and then I fast forward a little bit. I'm 13.
How old were you doing that? You're taking train.
I would have been 10 years old, 8, 9, 10 years old. Back then, that's just how you got around. My mom would give me a quarter. I'd hop on the subway and get to my game somewhere. My rec game. So I just loved hockey, Jay. It was. If I could put you in the inner city, you can imagine it's kind of like the movies. It was back in the 80s. There was drugs everywhere, drug dealers, prostitution, just stuff there was fights. It was I was living a movie, but it was all right. That was my reality. So I just played hockey all day. Whenever I could play hockey, that's all I did, because everything else outside of hockey wasn't fun to be around.
Right.
So I kept playing hockey, and the group that we hung around with, one of my best friends, Jeff Wilson, he kind of had a close-knit family that really supported him. He had some money, and he was always playing on the top teams, the travel teams, AAA teams. And deep down inside, I knew I was as good as him because we'd always play together, right? But I was kind of raw. I wasn't really coached. So he ends up finishing up in AAA midget. And I'm playing high school hockey in Canada and Toronto. I'm playing select hockey. I'm playing wherever I can without having to play. So high school hockey, you don't have to pay. Selects, you may have to pay a little bit. But Jeff was really a AAA, played for the Red Wings or the Young Nats with Kevin Weeks, the goalie. I don't know if you're Weeksy at all.
I played with him. He's been a guest on here too, Weeksy, yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So anyway, I knew Weeksy a little bit from Jeff, and so midget's done AAA. I'm playing high school hockey, and Jeff's going to junior B hockey now, for the scholarship route. He doesn't go to the OHL or whatever. And there's a new team in Richmond Hill Riot. They kind of just formed, and Jeff's the the kind of star player that's coming in. They're trying to recruit him. And Scott Mosley's the coach, and Jeff's like, hey, I got a good friend of mine. He's a good player. Can he come try out? And I'm kind of nervous. And so I went and tried out with Jeff. I was the last cut. I made that team last cut. And if I didn't get a ride up there, I wasn't going. I wouldn't have been able to play junior hockey. So I go up there, play a few years, get coached, learn how to play the game right. And a couple good years. And then next thing you know, I'm in Vernon. I needed to get away from Toronto because I was 18, 19 now. All my good friends were starting to booze. They're giving up on hockey, but I was still focused. I really wanted to I wanted to leave that area and make something of myself.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing very good in high school. The high school I was going to wasn't, you had pregnant girls in the classes. The teachers didn't care if you went. No one's holding you accountable. Like, what are you going to do to me, right? You're going to kick me out of school? Okay. So it was one of those things. And I was like, I need to get out of here. And I went to a summer a camp in Guelph called the Lakeland Super Camp. Rob Bremner, the head coach of Vernon Lakers, were there. And I went out there and had a good camp. And he was like, hey, Metro, why don't you come out here? Paul Correa's from out here. And I didn't know much about it, right? And I'm like, yeah, I need a change. So I'm making all these decisions on my own. I'm living with a single uncle at the time. He's out. Amazing guy, supported me. But, he was a single dad, just kind of working all the time. And I was just raising myself. So I made this decision. I'm like, I got to get out of here. And so it was the best decision of my life. Went to Kalamalka High School, graduated, had all the schools after me. I was having a good year. Flew down to Bowling Green, Ohio, signed a letter of intent with Buddy Powers. And I got a call in the summer. I stayed later on in Vernon to finish up my school. Yeah. I got a call and they said, Metro, the NCAA clearinghouse, and they want you to be redshirted. You have to sit out a year. And I'm like, man, I don't want to do that. So I went the other route. I was like, okay, I don't have an agent. I guess I need one. But I called Troy Mick, who was the assistant coach at the time in Vernon. Right.
Yeah.
And he got me a tryout in Nashville, in the East Coast Hockey League.
Why'd you need a red shirt? What was the issue with that?
My grades weren't good enough. My GPA average, my overall average. So I'd have to sit out a year, get those grades up. And I wasn't great in school anyway. It was one of those things that everyone's telling you, oh yeah, go to school, go that route. And, it just didn't work out for me that way. And I just wanted to play hockey, and
Gotcha.
I made the decision there to call Troy, and Troy got me a tryout actually with the Atlanta Knights in the IHL. And I got sent down after a week, and I was down in Nashville for 3 weeks before camp. And then healthy scratch, but we can go on to that too.
Yeah. Well, what about so the whole Richmond Hill thing? So you played more than 1 year there, like for that team?
I played 2 years there. Yep.
2 years.
First year was kind of like I got my feet wet a little bit, kind of learned a little bit. I think I had a point a game, 60 points or something, 60 games. So I'm not told. I'm sorry, I don't know if you have elite prospects up or. But I played that 1 year, and then the second year I really found my way and had a great year. And then it was like I needed more of a challenge as well. And
right.
I didn't want to go back for a third year. I knew it wasn't for me.
Yeah. And then you came to Vernon and led the Vipers, or the Lakers. The Vipers now led the Lakers in scoring. And were you like one of the? Did you lead the league in scoring that year, or where were you with that?
I think it was like top 5, I believe.
Top 5.
I think I was top 5. I'm not sure where I finished, but
right.
It was just a great year. It was a culture shock,
right?
Huh?
That was the old Civic Arena too, right? At that point.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Place was great, man. It was great.
Yeah. So how did that, like, just to touch on your upbringing, and it's, I mean, one, I'm curious because it's such a far. I mean, I grew up in Vernon, right? So you saw Vernon, like that was my home. Single, only child. Dad, mom and dad in the house. I was the only thing that they really needed to worry about or were concerned about. So, it definitely, I mean, had all the support in the world, and that obviously has an effect on me. It had an effect on me as a young man, right? It changes your view of the world, your worldview, right? And then I know there's some things from my own upbringing that I'm trying to not do with my own kid, right? Like you learn some things, and you tweak some things, and you do some things. But how did it for you affect you? Like, do you think it helped you as a hockey player in any aspect?
I think for me, Jay, it was survival for me, really. That was just back to what I said, it was my happy place being on the ice. My life outside the rink just wasn't a happy place. I'm not knocking my family down or anything like that. It just was, they had issues and, I was moving around a lot. I was in and out of foster homes for a little bit. My mom couldn't afford us and, she had her issues and living with family members. So, it's all a little bit of a blur, Jay, as I think back about it. But I just remember that my creativity, my happiness was being on the ice. And when I was in school, I'd be just looking out the window, thinking about hockey and couldn't wait to watch the Leafs play, even though they were terrible. But it was just like I was just all hockey, and that's all I wanted to do. So.
Even like so when I'm working with players now, and generally the players that I'm working with are midget age or bantam age or junior age, and I talk a lot about their environment, right? Their inner circle and who's around them, and I think that's important regardless of where you are, right? Because even at that level of the junior level, and you've seen it at the pro level, right? Like there's some guys that are just wired different, that go about their business different, and if you nurture those connections, it makes you better. It sounded like you did, even though there was a not an amazing environment in quite a few respects in your home life. Like, did you seem to find a little bit of a circle there that was healthy for you? Did you find? Yeah.
Yeah, the good thing about Toronto is that we've had the Boys and Girls Club, the Parks and Recreation Centers, and then see, when you grow up in a neighborhood like where I grew up, you kind of had the bad kids that didn't like sports, because sports save you, right? It teaches you a lot about life. And then you had the guys that all we did was just play hockey together, play baseball. We challenge each other in races around the rink or whatever, what I mean? Just playing games together. So we had our group, but the other group just got lost. Now they're doing stuff that mischief, they're doing shit that they should be doing. So my mentors growing up was, my uncles watching hockey, they're there for me, but really it was the after school programs at the Parks and Recreation Centers. Those were the mentors, the people that worked at the Boys and Girls Club that kind of told you to keep fighting, to do that extra squat. I even boxed, I mean? I was boxing after school. I just always wanted to do stuff.
Yeah.
So
just not be on the street, right?
Yeah. So, with that being said, I think we had a group of guys that were kind of focused on just playing sports, and that's kind of who I gravitated towards. Yeah. And my brother, that's it.
And like now there's such a, I mean, as you know, I mean, there's skill development coaches at every level. I mean, even down to like some Adam teams are having skill coach. I mean, it's crazy, right? Like, how nuts the game has shifted. And yet here you are, a 400 game NHLer, and didn't necessarily play any type of organized official hockey, essentially your entire youth, which sounds like, right?
I played single A hockey for a few years, but when we're talking probably 13 to 15, single A, where, twice a week you're going to play games. It wasn't like you're practicing. You're the right winger, so you stay on that side of the ice.
Right.
That really.
Oh my gosh. That is so wild. I mean, and I absolutely love that aspect. Maybe we should get into the pro scenario. I mean, I don't know if we should digress or focus on it, but like for some reason, obviously you were a hell of a hockey player, right? I mean, there was something about you that you knew to play the game, you understood the game, you were skilled enough for you to have that development curve and then go to the junior ranks and to be as successful as you were there. It wasn't. I mean, you earned your ability to get a tryout. You earned your spot on the ECHL team. It wasn't like you were drafted and we need to make this work out, right? Like you were able to do that, and not everyone is able to do that. So it's not like your story really applies to everyone, but it is it's inspiring to me, that the success that you were able to have, and also the road that you took to get there. Gratitude is a word that I've been using with my clients a lot lately, and it's sort of been on the top of my head. Was there a lot of gratefulness for you just going through it, like being in Vernon, like seeing the lake there, being on this team in that league? And I mean, I don't know, like I would like to hear it from you, but I find gratitude to be such a healthy, high performance tool. And when guys have it, it's like, I think it's something that makes people better. Did you carry gratitude with you a lot of your way?
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. I was a kid. I always said thank you and to everybody, and I just love being at the rink. So I say that all the time, man. I'm grateful all the time. I'm grateful. I wake up in the morning. I write down what I'm grateful for. That's actually part of my days. Um, but I just had enthusiasm, passion for the game. I don't know if that's taught. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it's in your. It's not. And I think I was in love with the game. I couldn't get enough of watching hockey too. That was the thing too. I watched hockey. That's all I did. Even Toronto Maple Leafs, like back in the early '90s, late '80s, they weren't very good. So, but I love the game so much. The sticker books, anything I could do with hockey. I was in the library trying to learn how to do a wrist shot. And they didn't have any illustrations. I was just anything I could do. I was just trying to find stuff on hockey. And but yeah, great. Gratitude, grateful. I mean, yeah, I always was. I think so.
I had I have a family friend who's also a client, and he was a top prospect. He was drafted third round in WHL and played as a young WHLer 4 years now. But passed over in the NHL draft twice. For whatever reason, right? Like good player.
Yeah.
I mean, hasn't really peaked, I guess, or hadn't really got noticed. And then he just got invited to the Edmonton Oilers prospects camp. So like he leaves today.
Nice.
And
Okay.
when he called me, when he got the call from Edmonton, I had never heard gratitude from a human being like that. And it wasn't gratitude to me. I don't mean that. I mean, grateful for the opportunity from the Edmonton Oilers, right? Like,
yeah.
He was so excited and so thankful and so grateful. And it just like,
yeah,
it's such a special feeling. Like because I remember on the flip side of it, like, me being supposed to be in a first rounder, like I'm just talking about the draft now, and then like all these crazy things happen on draft day and slide to 31, and I was pouty.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was pouty. And I'm being completely transparent. Like it was a bad day for me, right? Being 31st overall in the world, And then like if you don't make the NHL team, go into the minors, you're kind of pouty because you're like, oh, I shouldn't be here, and like. But gratitude, like there's so many times and there's so many options to be grateful, right? And obviously, I just find that so compelling. Like from your story and your background, having that opportunity to be a pro in the ECHL, I'm sure you weren't too bitchy about not making the IHL. You're probably, this is pretty good. I got a paycheck, have a chance to play, right? Like
I was making $425 a week.
Right.
I mean, I got sent down to Nashville, and I was a healthy scratch for the first 10 games. I remember I got on our first bus ride down to Tallahassee to play against the Tiger Sharks, and we had a full squad, pretty solid older guys, Dixon Ward, bunch of other veteran guys, right? And I was the guy that I was sleeping at the front with our bus driver's nickname was Snake. He was wearing a Scorpions leather jacket, cut off sleeves. No joke, I'm not lying. But I was lying on the stairs as the Greyhound bus, as you can get off. I was sleeping on those stairs, and healthy scratch. But know what? I was, back to your word, grateful. I was playing pro hockey, and I wasn't giving up. So that was
right.
Part of the journey. Back to the journey. Word.
Just want to take a short break from the podcast to talk about all things Up My Hockey. As you may or may not know, I have never accepted an official sponsorship from anyone for this podcast. This podcast wasn't meant to generate income. That was not the genesis for it. It was more or less to have discussions about hockey that provide value to the hockey community, to hockey players and to hockey parents and to hockey coaches about, what it takes to get there, what it takes to make it. And it allows me to have conversations on topics that are near and dear to me and to what I do now with Up My Hockey, which is mentor young players in the mental aspects of the game, to allow them to play their best hockey, to allow them to make their dreams and their goals come true. Super rewarding stuff that I'm doing, and I'm super thankful for all the players and all the parents that I've had the opportunity to work with and support. Now, the services and the products of Up My Hockey is what really supports this podcast, because without the players and the parents who are willing to invest in the Peak Potential program, or the teams that are willing to invest in the Peak Potential program, or the players that are working with me either privately or through the group calls, there would be no way that this podcast could exist. So I thank you for all you people who have supported Up My Hockey, and for all the players that I've been able to work with and the teams that I've been able to support. It really allows this podcast to happen. So for you, if you are interested in supporting the podcast, I have mentioned this before, you can do that either by sharing the podcast, by allowing this message to get out to more players and to more parents and to more coaches, either on your social media or in your inner social circles, by word of mouth. That would be much appreciated. And also, obviously, by using the Peak Potential product. If you have a hockey player that you would like to have more confidence, to gain resiliency, to grow leadership skills and personal accountability and commitment to their game, have the growth mindset required to really flourish, the Peak Potential Hockey Project is for you. It's honestly a no-brainer as a dad. I'm having a much easier time promoting and marketing the course because I've seen the success of it countless times, again and again and again. The testimonials speak for themselves. And as a father of young hockey players, I know the value of what this stuff teaches in the terms of what it provides to young men and women who are going to be adults roaming around this earth, whether they're going to be playing hockey or not. These are also life skills. So yes, if you have a hockey player, if you have somebody that is driven and is passionate about the sport and wants to go places, the concepts talked about in the Peak Potential Hockey Project, the way they are laid out, the assignments provided, the coaching calls that come with it, are making a big impact on the players that are taking it. So check out the next guided mission of the Peak Potential Hockey Project. That's where you get to work with me on 4 different coaching calls in a group environment after each week of the theming. And I offer that about every 5 weeks. So it's a 4-week program. We usually take a week off, and then I have another guided mission. There's also a solo mission for those of you who just want to purchase it for your player and go through it together potentially. Father-son, father-daughter, mother-son, mother-daughter, however it may work. There's a solo mission, or just the player by themselves can also take that without any coaching or reinforcement. And there also is the mentored mission. So that's when your player would work directly with me throughout the entire 4 weeks, private coaching calls, a very, very personalized tour of the concepts within. So that's the 3 ways to take it as an individual. And if you want to take this as a team, I've talked about this before on the show, the team building of what the Peak Potential Hockey Project does for these teams that take it. It's really fantastic. It gives the team a foundation, a cultural foundation to build from. The players all are given the tools to understand what growth mindset is, what it means to make mistakes, what it means to have personal deliberate practice, how to become more accountable to their game and to their development and to each other, to become better teammates, better leaders within the dressing room. It really provides an absolutely terrific foundation to start a season from, or to have a mid-season boost from, or to get ready for the playoffs. So if you are a coach or a manager or a parent of somebody on a team, a competitive team that wants to have that little extra competitive edge this year, that's another way to support this show. So everything can be found on upmyhockey.com. That's the website, and that is where the services are provided. I'm really going all in the Peak Potential Project. It's been fantastic to work with these players, whether individually or on teams, and that is how you can support this show. So thanks again for everyone who has participated. Thanks again for listening, and let's get back to the show with Glen Metropolit. At what point was NHL on your radar? Like, was that something that, I mean, you said you watched it, you said you were in love with it. Was that something that you thought you could be doing at some point?
I first realized that when Harry York played in Nashville with me. I don't know if you remember that name, Harry York, but he played in SJ, Yorkton, I think, York, in a Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. And
was he a Ranger at one point?
Yeah, he was a Ranger at one point. Yeah. But he ended up getting called up to Worcester from the East Coast, and then he got his chance up in St. Louis, and he was doing well. And I'm like, fuck, excuse my language. Harry's up there. I'm like, okay, I think I can do it. And that kind of just, get my confidence going. He's there. I was competing against him in the East Coast Hockey League on the same team, and we're buddies, roommates. And then from there, I just kind of, I started believing a little bit more in myself, but
Right.
initially, Jay, I just wanted to play pro hockey. I wanted to postpone going back to Toronto as long as I could,
Right.
because it wasn't a healthy environment back there.
When that belief switch flipped for you, did that change any of your habits, any of your routines, any of your attention to detail with practice or anything, or like what how did that influence you and your career, do you think?
I think at the time, I think it was more, he was riding a bike at night and stuff like that, and I wasn't doing that stuff. And then I started doing what he did, and then I really became more invested, and I was the last guy off the ice. But I always was kind of like last guy off, but I realized that you had to put more work into it. You just couldn't be happy where you were.
Right.
And then, then you're in survival mode too. Summertime comes around, after East Coast Hockey League day, my first year. And I'm like, okay, I had a little bit of money saved. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be able to hit the gym, to work on my legs, do my program that I had from Bowling Green. I was just going to do that program for the summer. Yeah. And I started that, but I didn't have enough money. So I was starting to do some landscaping work. And during the season, there was the RHI, the Roller Hockey International, and they ended up drafting me. They took all the minor league guys and had a draft, and it was a pretty big league back at the time. Good summer job for the minor league hockey guys, to make some money in the summer. So I was laying down sod and, cutting bushes, and I'm like, man, I don't want to do this. So I ended up I played in a roller hockey league that summer, in a professional roller hockey league with the Long Island Jaws, and trying to work out and playing roller hockey. And that's what I did for that summer, and then after that summer went by, I ended up going to Pensacola, the Ice Pilots at the time, the East Coast Hockey League.
Yeah.
And they were affiliated with the IHL team in Quebec Rafales. So I went to Quebec, started off pretty good, but then ultimately I got sent down to Pensacola. And there again, had a great year, put up some great numbers, made to the conference finals, I think.
So you made that team out of camp? Like you made an IHL team on what would that be called? You didn't have an NHL deal, so it was just a pro contract, IHL pro contract.
Yeah, IHL pro contract, yeah. So I ended up getting a two-way contract, right? Pro and Pensacola. Yeah. So I was up and down a little bit throughout the year, Pensacola, Quebec. And then finished off in Pensacola. We had a great run. I think we lost in the conference finals. And then now I'm on top. Like, I feel really good. I had such a great year, a lot of confidence now. Again, I go into the summertime, wanting to just train, work out in Toronto. It wasn't the right time for me to be in Toronto, just working out, seeing my friends and all that. So back to roller hockey with Team Canada, won a world championship with Team Canada in Anaheim.
Okay, I want to back up on though, if you don't mind, just so like you go back, so you're a pro. Yeah. Maybe do you mind sharing what you're making in the EC well, you said $400 a week. Is that essentially what you were making there that second year too, roughly?
I think I was making around $750 a week.
$750 a week. So yeah, so I mean, you're not.
Yeah, I'm not banking. Yeah. I'm not banking a lot.
You're not banking. At this point, you're probably what, 22, 23? I think if I got my.
I'm 22.
22.
22. Yeah.
Go back to Toronto, and home for Toronto still is that Regent Park area. Is that where you would go back to?
Yeah, it'd be the East End, Regent Park. Yeah. Now all my buddies they're more into the bar scene, and I'm kind of getting caught into it a little bit with them, and then finally I was like, okay, I'm living with my single uncle. It became a little bit of a happy house. You know what I mean? And I was just like, okay, I knew it was more of a gut thing again. I'm like, I got to get out of here.
Right.
And so I played with Team Canada in the World Championships out in Anaheim, and ended up winning there. I signed a contract while I was out there with Grand Rapids Griffins. So I ended up winning a gold medal. I ended up playing with the Anaheim Bullfrogs, win the championship with them as well. And then I ended up going to I finally got my one-way deal in Grand Rapids with Dave Allison as a coach.
Right.
And so here I am at camp, can't skate, pucks are heavy. You know what I mean? Because roller hockey, right? The blades were different, the pucks were lighter. But I go to camp, not very good camp. It is what it is. I'm there with my girlfriend at the time. She moves in with me. We're up there in Grand Rapids, and camp wasn't great. I get sent down to Muskegon. The team goes to Orlando, the IHL team, Grand Rapids. They go to Orlando. Dave Allison's like, hey, you're going to go down to Muskegon, and what league's that? U-Haul, United Hockey League. And I get down there. I go see the coach. He's in this like little room smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? I'm here for a few days while the team's gone to Orlando. I was like, yeah, okay, well, you can get a jersey. And they give me a jersey, like a football jersey. My gut's showing. I'm on the ice. My line mate's like Gary Gupal. This guy got suspended by every league. He's my line mate. And that was a big wake-up call where I was so down on myself, where I was just like, man, there's no way am I going to be down here. I wasn't playing down there because I was on a contract with Grand Rapids. I was just down there kind of training, skating, whatever.
Yeah.
And that was a big wake-up call for me. And then I ended up getting back up, and Dave Allison started to kind of hop on my, he kind of gave me some more responsibility. I was playing with Mark Gregg and Michel Picard, two great vets. They took me under their wing, and I started cruising. Not cruising, but I started getting confidence in playing.
Right. Yeah.
But man,
where did the compass come from? Like at 22 to say, hey, this, because it's an easy one to fall into, and especially you. You going back there, you were probably, I don't know what the right way to put it, but you're the pro hockey guy that comes back in the summer. It's for your buddies, and you're probably a rock star. Like to have that. Like, well, there's a fork in the road.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a fork. Well, what made you leave? Like, what do you think it was?
I just knew that wasn't for me. I went back to Toronto, back to your point. My buddies, the Thursday, Friday, Saturday partying. I was trying to train, trying to work out, and that was my core friends, doing that. So it was like, okay, I'm doing it with them. And then I was like, no, this is not who I am. And it was a gut check, and it was like, okay, I got to get out of here again. I got to take care of Glen. So, that's kind of, but I think I learned that as growing up. I was in and out of different homes, and I was okay moving, getting out of my comfort zone.
Right.
So,
you're at Grand Rapids. So then you go to Grand Rapids. You get your one way, and maybe you saying a one way. You're saying a one way AHL one way, right? Pro.
Yeah,
so,
IHL. Yeah.
And you catch fire. A point a game there, 81 points in 77 games. That's that's a hell of a year. That's a hell of a year. And you're one step away from the NHL now, right? So you said earlier, like you believed because you saw Yorkie go up there and do it, right? And you're like, all right, maybe this is for me. But now you're actually performing and doing it at the second best league in the world, really, by some accounts. And so was that fire even a little brighter?
Yeah. That was my goal now, right? I knew I was kind of sniffing a little bit, and learning from the other guys, Michel Picard, I thought he was the best player I ever played with. This guy was so good, and he was up and down with St. Louis Blues too. And he'd get called up and he'd score, and I'd be like, wow, man, I love this guy. And I just kept grinding. I just kept on, riding a bike, getting in the gym after, and just, being the last guy off the ice.
Right.
That was part of the routine.
So what happened with it? So end of that season, did you have a 1-year deal? Because then you're up in next year is your first dance in the show, right? So how did that all happen? Is it contract based or what happened?
Is this with the Caps?
Yeah, the Caps.
Yeah. I ended up hiring Billy Zito as my coach, or as my agent, Bill Zito. I met him. Who was he? I think he was Michel Picard's agent. So Pick said, yeah, why don't you hop on with Bill? He likes you. And he ended up taking me to the draft that was in Boston. And I met up with a few teams. And we ultimately decided on Washington because they lost in the finals that year to the Red Wings. They lost 4 straight or 4-1. And some guys were leaving, and we're like, okay, this might be a good opportunity. They might be rebuilding. I was 24, 25. And we ended up signing a contract there with the George McPhee and the Caps. Ron Wilson was the coach. Tim Army was the assistant coach. And Tim Hunter.
Right.
And I made the team out of camp. I was on top of the world. Yeah, man, I made the team out of camp. Starting lineup against the Florida Panthers, I'm lined up against Pavel Bure. So I'm with Adam Oates and Peter Bondra. So I'm telling myself too, Jay, I'm like, play your game. Don't worry about it. Well, I didn't have the greatest game. I played 18 minutes, -1, but I didn't want to make a mistake. I played scared and after the game I got sent down in another low point. You know what I mean?
What?
Absolutely crushed me. They sent me down after
game
that
one?
game. After game 1, yeah. I got sent down and here I am down in Portland, it's gloomy down there and I'm like, I'm mad at the world, right? I'm like, God, man. I didn't think I was ever going to get called back up. So I had a good week of feeling sorry for myself. It was like, okay, don't worry about it, Metro. Okay, let's get back on the train here and get working. Glenn Hanlon was a great coach for me. It did nothing for me going down there and pouting. I was in my own head, my own world. And sure enough, I went down there after a good week and just started battling. I was fighting. I was doing whatever I can. Glenn was a great coach for me. And then I was getting called up and down, and I ended up playing with Chris Simon and Adam Oates, and I was having a good year on it. But I was still a little bit raw for NHL. I wasn't ready as I think back. It was it was a heavy puck game. Chip it out, hook in. I was good on a power play. I had some good skill, good mitts. Goal line, fake, pack to Oatsy up to Gonchar, bomb. Whatever. But I wasn't ready. I was still green. So.
Let's talk. That's nuts to me. So you go from not drafted, not on any NHL radar, to signing with, I assume, a two-way with Washington. Is that what your contract was?
Yep.
And you make that team out of camp. Like, did you? I'm sure you had to surprise some people. Like, even though you had such great numbers, like in Grand Rapids, I doubt they had you penciled in that starting lineup, right? Like, so did you have a pretty awesome camp?
I had a good camp. I went in there feeling good, strong. I really had a good camp. I felt good about my game.
Too? Was the
good
summer
summer?
Good?
Yeah. I was able to just train out hard. I didn't go back to Toronto after that. I was with my girlfriend at the time in Pensacola. So I stayed there and I was really able to grind in the gym and do all my workouts on the beach and really focus, eat well. And I went in there focused and it was my time in my mind. I'm going to show everyone, and had a great camp. And, I made the team. Ron Wilson, they told me the night before or whatever. And, but then after the first game.
Yeah, so how does that, I've been in that chair, right? But not in that scenario. I never had the luxury of making a team out of camp. I was like, the last cut twice, and like, then I was a call up and I never got told to go find a place, I was always up and down guy. So making it out of camp, I just never even heard of guys getting sent down after one game. Like, what was that conversation like? Do you remember it in the office? What'd they say?
I don't remember Ron telling me, but I think it was more or less George McPhee. I can't remember because it's such a blur. I was up and down so much, Jake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally get it. But
I just remember being on the line, after camp, and we had team practice as our lines, and just being wow. Don't get caught up in it. You know what I mean? I just try to not get caught up in it, but it's a natural thing. There's no way around it. I couldn't sleep. I was like, man, I've reached my dream. And,
well, the part that blows me away, and now you're on the coaching side of it, is like, okay, so you have this guy that's impressed you enough out of camp, at 24, 25. He's never played in the NHL before. And he has, like, it couldn't have been a catastrophic game, but like a not a great game, and the best idea from the brass is we're going to send him down. That's just wild to me that was like the choice. And,
I know.
And how does that? And for the players listening, because there are a lot of players, and like listening, that there are these down moments, and there are these holes, right? And there are these times where you're feeling sorry for yourself, and why me? And it's very easy to play the victim role. You can all be pretty good at it. For your scenario, wow, that's one of the ones where you could really feel like that's a gut punch. You said you gave yourself a good week there. What was the motivation to get out of it, or what was, do you remember what that was to say, hey, this is where I am, this is where I got to go?
Yeah, I think they're just. I realized after a little bit of time, feeling bad for myself or sorry for myself, that hey, man, at the end of the day, it's up to you, right? You got to show them. So I got over that, and it was like either you use it or it uses you. So I let it use me for a little bit, and I'm like, no, what? I'm going to use this as fuel, and I'm going to go shove it. You know what I mean? I'm going to show them that I belong there. And the coach was a really good coach for me too, Glenn Hanlon. He was a really he was so instrumental in being able to be a personable coach to me. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I don't want to say the hugging type, but more like being eye to eye and be like, hey man, this is not going to get you there unless you kind of wake up and put, let's go. So,
Yeah.
I was more of a guy that needed hugs, not kicks in the ass type. So, that was great. And then I was like, yeah, back to the point, use it or it uses you. So
That's a great line.
yeah.
That's a really good line because again, when I'm working with these players, like I'm always talking about decisions, right? That we're faced with so many decisions, right? And like how one event, like that one event for you of getting sent down, like for a handful, that would have ended it.
Yeah.
Players, right?
That's
and for
it. Yeah,
some others,
yeah.
it's going to be it's going to mean something different to them, right? Like we get to choose the meaning a lot of times,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Right.
what does this mean to me and for me? And if we can align that with our goal of like for you now at this point, you've had that cup of coffee, you know what it tastes like, you've seen it, you believe it. You know, what I mean, you pouting in the minors isn't aligned with your goal of being an NHLer, right?
Right. Yeah. They're
And
not
so
feeling
you got to
sorry
get
for
them in
you.
line. What's that?
They're not feeling sorry for you.
Right.
It's like, and back in the day too, there wasn't a lot of communication, right? So even when I was getting called up, you're playing 2-3 minutes. You don't know why you're not playing more than you're just be pro, play the game right, So
Yep. No, for sure. And that's where I remember playing against you. I don't think we played against each other much, if at all, in the NHL. But I remember you being in Portland, and
yeah.
and
Were you in Lowell?
I think I was in Lowell at the time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I was in Lowell at the time, and
Yeah.
you guys had some good teams there. And you had one of my old line mates there with you, Trent Whitfield, at the time. I don't know if you remember Witter very much, but we played together in Spokane. So
yeah, loved the kid, loved him.
Yeah, he went on to a good little career himself there for sure.
Yeah, he put some miles on the body.
Yeah. Did he ever? What so you ended up like Washington ended up being where you kind of cut your teeth a little bit, right, at the NHL, but that was also when you decided to leave, right? Like after your experience with them. Like can you walk us through what that was all about when you decided to hit the road?
Yeah. I felt, I ended up signing with them again after that first year, re-signed for 2 years, I believe. Wait, was it a 2 and 2? I forget, Jay. But anyway, my daughter was born, Olivia, in 2002. And so I'm up and down, I'm getting sent up and down. And then next thing you know, I'm like, I can't do this no more, George McPhee. Right? I was like, either you guys, when I was getting sent down, I was fighting, scoring, I was doing whatever I could. And I was like, can you guys trade me? I asked for a trade. They're like, only if we can get something good, the right assets back. So nothing worked out. So I'm like, Bill, how do I get out of here? Bill Zito, and he's like, well, they're not going to trade you. The only way you can go is you got to go to Europe. And then after 1 year in Europe, you're a free agent. So I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I know I'm good enough for the NHL, and during this time too, it's like year 3, I get in there and they give my number to Robert Lang without even telling me, not saying that got asked me, but it's just like a whole, I was nothing to them. You know what I mean? That really kind of was part of it too. And Bruce Cassidy ended up getting a job over Glen Hanlon. That was the turning point for me. Bruce Cassidy brought in some of his older vet players that he coached. Kip Miller, Jaromir Jagr came in, and I led the preseason in scoring. So I'm like, okay, man, I still, even though I know Cassidy didn't like me, I'm still gonna prove them wrong. You know what I mean? I'm gonna win a spot. Yeah. And long story short, I'm getting bag skated and all that, and then the year goes on, and I'm like, okay, I got to get out of here, Bill. They didn't trade me, and so we had a few options. I can go to Switzerland, Russia. I had some options. I'm like, no, what? And he had good connections in Finland. He had a lot of players in Finland at the time. And he's like, well, why don't you go to Helsinki, have a great year, and let's see what happens. And that's kind of that's where it went from there. I went there for a year, had a great year. And then the lockout year came. Timmy Thomas was in net for us the lockout year. And that's where my confidence grew again. Saku Koivu was back in the league. Some other guys were playing. John Madden was playing in the SM Liga. Mm-hmm. And the rules changed. So now the game opened up a little bit. That was after the lockout. So the rules changed now. Danny Briere was on fire, and all the smaller players were kind of really starting to, it was kind of their game now, right? It wasn't a heavy puck game anymore.
Yeah.
And so nothing went down after that year for some reason. I ended up signing with Lugano in the Swiss National League. I go there 1 year, MVP of the league. We won a championship. I go to World Championships. And I end up changing agents. I go with Larry Kelly. And Larry Kelly calls me and is like, hey, the Atlanta Thrashers really, they like you, Don Waddell. And I'm like, oh, great, So that gave me a little boost during the playoffs in Lugano. And I ended up going to Team Canada in Riga. And then I ended up meeting Don Waddell, and then ended up getting a deal with the Atlanta Thrashers. And I went to Europe, though, man, with the whole, I'm getting back. I'm proving everybody wrong. I'm the underdog. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And that's when I had my best years.
Right.
When I came back.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just looked it up. You're 32 coming back to the NHL.
Yeah.
Right, for the majority of your career then at that point too. I mean, that's where you played a lion's share of your games, right, from 32 on.
Yeah.
So talk about earning it. Like, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And, I mean, very similar. I mean, I had Derek Ryan on here, like a year and a half ago or whatever, and not that he played in the minors, but I mean, he couldn't get a job anywhere except for like a second league team, I think in Belarus or somewhere. I can't remember exactly, but.
Yeah.
He owned that league, and he owned the next league that he went to. And then he was MVP in Switzerland. I mean, in Sweden, right? And then he ended up coming back, and that's one thing I say to players, right? Like when they're not happy with either the league that they're on or the line that they're on or whatever the case may be, I just say, own where you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, right? Like if you're too good to be there, if you're too good to be on that line, then be too good to be on that line or to be in that league, and that's essentially what you did, right? I mean, you go to Finland, you're a top 10 scorer. You go to Finland again, top 10 scorer. You go to the Swiss league, you're a top scorer, right? Like keep doing that again and again, like someone's going to notice. They have to.
Yeah. I agree. Stick it back. Yeah. Wow.
And then so Atlanta was Lars on that team?
Yeah, Lars. Awesome, man. Love Lars.
He was there. So, okay, so that was interesting. Maybe that's something we can chat about, because I'm sure I didn't check the other teams that you played for, but I'm sure there was a different culture in some of these places you were at. And like, so Brad came to Atlanta after being with the Avalanche, right? And so he's been a guest on the podcast, and he was just, it's something that I know is in his DNA now, his experience there with Colorado, just like how good that team was and how they held each other accountable, and like what winning meant and what it really took to win, right? Like he saw it from a fourth line role and what the Stars did and what their commitment level was. And then he said he went to Atlanta, and it was great for his career on a personal level, but he's like, it was night and day different.
Oh yeah. There was no culture there. There was no.
Yeah, he's like from a like you're in the same league, but you feel like you're in a different universe, right?
Yeah.
What was your experience like from what you experienced in Washington to Atlanta? Was it similar? Like was it quite a bit different, or was I don't know? Speak to that a little bit, and then maybe what your experience was like with some of these other teams that you got to that maybe had a little different vibe to it.
Yeah, I think Washington, they're established, older team, a little bit. They had a good fan base. Washington Capitals. They had a culture there a little bit, they had Adam Oates, guys in the dressing room, but then fast forward to Atlanta, it was just, transient town. There it was so green, basketball, football, Southern Belt, college football. It just, the vibe, the feeling wasn't there. And for me, being coached by Bob Hartley, if you're a bottom six guy, and he doesn't like you. I don't want to say he didn't like me, but it was a tough year on me coming back. I think I was 31, if I remember correctly. But anyway, coming back, older guy, the year I had, It was a tough year with Bob, and then I ended up getting traded at the deadline for Keith Kachuk, and half of 10 picks. I don't know how many, so I ended up going to St. Louis, and that was that year was a tough year because St. Louis, they're I remember getting there in the trade the day before trade deadline, and everyone's they're on the outside looking. Everyone's thinking they're getting traded. Jamal Myers and Dougie Wade, Billy Guerin, and you didn't feel like you're going to be a part of a team even when I got traded there. I went there with Brad Boyes and Billy Nieminen, and so I ended up finishing off 20 games there. And now the summer comes. You know what I mean? It's like, what's my leverage? I'm 32 now, 31, and I'm like, Larry, what am I going to do? What's happening? And Boston Bruins was interested, and I went there on the PTO, like a professional tryout, and I'm sitting in the boiler room during leading into camp. I get there a day before, and I want to get on the ice, get my gear going. They have me down in not the boiler room, but I wasn't in the main room. So here I am, I'm down with the American Hockey League guys, East Coast League hockey guys, and that's okay. But I was going to Boston to make that team. And I knew Claude Julien a little bit from the World Championships with Team Canada.
Yep.
He was the head coach, and he kind of knew what I could do. He saw me, and he knew my personality, and ended up making that team. And what a great year I had there too, man. I had a good role. I finally felt like I was an NHL player there. Bergeron went down with a concussion. He was out for the year, so our depth at center really went down. We had David Krejci, he was a rookie, Savard, PJ Axelson, myself. I'm forgetting some other. Sabolka, Vladimir Sabolka. So kind of like we're pretty thin up the middle, without Bergie, and I ended up taking his minutes, and here I am. Third line. I was playing with Lucic and Chucky Kobasu.
Kobasu.
Yeah, and we had a solid year. Third line, chip it in. Luch go run. I could kind of make some plays, and Chucky was the sniper. So we had a good year.
Just take another short break from the podcast and their conversation with Glen Metropolit to talk about ways you can include my services and my concepts either in your association or for your team. I do offer workshops for coaches on culture. I've worked with associations in the past on how to build culture and how to build culture within your teams. That is a product and service that I provide. And I also offer mindset masterclasses. So if you are an association head of either an academy or a minor hockey association, and you'd like to get some information on mental toughness, resiliency, mindset to your membership base, I do provide either Zoom or in-person masterclasses on mindset. This has been a great opportunity for me to get out the concepts, to share the concepts with others, and it is inspiring to those who are in attendance to move forward and to include mindset as part of their training, and to know how to include mindset as part of their training and part of their development. So two options there that some people are unaware of as far as being on stage or being on a Zoom video call, that we can discuss culture with coaches or with parents, and also mindset masterclass. So if you are interested in either one of those, by all means, you can reach out at upmyhockey.com. There is a submission box there, a contact form, or you can reach out directly at Jason at upmyhockey.com. That's my personal email if you'd like to get in touch with me and discuss what that might look like for your association, team, or academy program. So thanks a lot for listening. We'll get back to the podcast with Glen Metropolit.
Yeah, I'm an older guy. They didn't want to bring me in as a third line centerman because Bergeron's coming back now. You got Krejci, you got Swabolka, you got Savvy.
How do you navigate that, Metro? Like, so being and that's another thing that a lot of the guys that I'm with have a hard time dealing with when they level up, right? And I know that we've both experienced it, but you're a point leader into not let alone on your team that you're playing on, but sometimes in the league that you're in, and then the next place you go, you're not getting those same minutes, right? And you're not in those same scenarios. So how did you adapt to that? Like, did you have to change your game? Did you have to fall in love with different aspects of the game to be relevant, or like what was your approach to that?
I knew whatever role whatever role they were giving me, I had to do the best I could in my ability. So I was a penalty killer in Boston. So now I had to become a penalty killer. So it was all about angles and trying to be the best penalty killer. And I was always a good teammate, I think, too, Jay. So I think that goes around where, I was a grocery stick in the middle sometimes, right in the middle of the D and the forwards. I was rah, rah, it's let's go, boys. So it was just being a good team guy, and whatever they needed from me, I tried my best to provide the best I could. And it wasn't about, I didn't have no ego. It was whatever the team needed. And you just got to realize that. And I think I learned that as a younger age, trying to get up at different levels, right?
Right.
Whatever team needed, if you want to get to a higher level, you better accept the role, do the best you can, and leave it out there on the ice. Because no coach will be. If you're a hard worker, every coach loves a hard worker.
Yeah,
that's a choice. You can work hard, so go out there and lay it out there the best you can.
And that was your approach?
That was my approach. Yeah.
I remember a conversation with Jason Krog came to mind, and maybe he was in Atlanta with you?
He was up and down. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he actually, because it was Hartley that he told the story about, and he was leading the IHL in points at the time, right? And he just came off an MVP season. Older guy as well. I mean, Hobie, he had a resume, right? Hobie Baker.
Yeah.
And he got called up by Atlanta a few times, and he says. He told a story which I thought was awesome, where he got put on the power play, but he was the net front guy, right? So he's like, I've never been net front guy in my life. I didn't even know what I was supposed to do. And here I'm standing in front of the net and getting cross checks up the back, and he goes, and a part of me was like resentful almost that this is where I was, and so his story was meant not to be like that was what he should have done, but he wishes that he was more accepting and just doing the best he could with what was asked of him, right? So that resistance of why am I here doing this actually hurt him, right? Because he wasn't doing the best job he could in that moment. I think that's super powerful, because a lot of us get caught up in that resistance mode, right? Why am I the third line right winger? I should be second or first. And then in that thought process, you're not doing the best you can for yourself or for the team, because right, you're not fully invested. So anyway, that was a powerful story, and I mean, and vice versa. You're saying that you were a guy that just bought in, and I'm sure that did nothing but help you, not only on the ice but in the eyes of your coach, right, and with the respect of your teammates.
Yeah, and I think that actually helped me too in regards to after that year in Boston. Now here I got a 2-year deal with the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm a decent penalty killer. I played with the Bruins, a hard worker, and then I got my 2-year deal, and that was kind of it didn't end up doing, it ended up working out better in the end. I go to Montreal, but that was a tough place to go. They had a salary cap issues and injuries, and it was just that was a different beast.
Philly?
Yeah, just playing with the Flyers, just the town, the city. The dressing room, the culture was a little bit weird, the different, younger guys that were the glue, or the younger guys that I want to say they're focused, but they had other stuff going on too. It was just like, man, okay, this is wild.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What we're coming up in the 60 minutes, so we're right here, and I want to respect your time, but I do want to ask you about the Canadians, and maybe because I like the transition points, right? Like what happens for guys. You've been an NHLer now for a while. You found a role, like you said, that got you a two-year deal somewhere. You end up in Montreal, and you have your most offensive, well, at least from goal standpoint, you score 16 in Montreal, right? You score 16, you get 30 points, and then you never play in the NHL again. Like how did that happen? And was there no deals available, or walk me through how that all worked out?
Well, so back to the Philadelphia Flyers. So I skate in the morning. John Stevens pulls me over. There's a lot of stuff going on with salary caps and stuff like that. Ford's coming back, Danny Briere, Kimmo Timonen. And John Stevens is like, hey, Metro, I'm sure you're aware, but you're going to be put on waivers. And I feel like there's a good chance a team might grab you. Be ready to play tonight, and we'll see what happens. So I get off shower. I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, okay, shit, what's going on? I eat, go home, get some sleep. I get a call. It's Bob Gainey. Bob Gainey calls me Montreal Canadiens. He's like, Metro, and I can't do the French accent, but And he said, Metro, we're so happy to have you on our team. We picked you off waivers. We claimed you. I think you're going to be a great addition for us. Guy Carbonell's going to be calling you, our head coach. So be aware. Guy Carbonell calls me, hey, Metro, great having you. Loved watching you play. Congratulations. You're Hab now. And they were in town playing Philadelphia that night in Philadelphia. So I skated in the morning with Philadelphia. And Guy's like, hey, I understand you if you don't want to play tonight. I'm like, are you serious? Yeah, I want to play. Let's stick it up the Flyers' ass. So anyway, I walked. My wife at the time drops me off in my suitcase because I'm heading back to Montreal with the team after the game. So I walk by all the security guards in Philly, some of the guys, right down to the room, and here I am. I got my number 15 jersey hanging up in the stall. I'm sitting beside George Laraque, and we're going up to play. Starting lineup: Kovalev, Metropolit, and Koivu. So I was like, during warm up, I'm looking at Scotty Hartnell and Loophole and all my buddies, right? Mike Richards, and what a game that was. So anyway, long story short, so I ended up going back to Montreal, and then that summer comes around. We end up picking up a lot of good guys. July 1st, Scott Gomez, Hal Gill, Gionta. They make a big splash, bringing a lot of guys. Jacques Martin's the head coach now. Yeah. Now I feel like, okay, we have a chance. I feel like I'm part of the team. We have a great year, and I'm in it. I'm off the power play. I'm on a power play. Pacioretty's a rookie, so I led the team in power play goals that year too. I had 10 goals, but I wasn't even a fixture. I was in front of the net. Back to your point with Jason Krog, yeah. I had to learn how to hit the D-man before he hit me so I could deflect the puck. I was fighting for that area too, but I didn't have no idea, right? So. Yeah. It was a skill that I had to learn. I worked at it, had a great year power play, and then we made the run to the conference finals. Here I am, 35, right, Jay? It's a younger man's game now. I'm a third liner. I had an offer in the summer to go to Anaheim for 1 year, and at that time I didn't want to move the family. I was like, I don't want to go 1 year and waivers or younger guys taking my job, and here I am. I'm out in California with the kids, and so we decided on going to Switzerland for 2 years, kids international school, and did 2 years in Zug, 2 years in Lugano, and 2 years in Mannheim.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah, nuts, crazy. But crazy. I had my best year, when I was 35.
Right, so, and your last year, which is so crazy too.
But
super wild. The one thing I want to point out, what year was it? 2012, 2013. So you're in Lugano.
Yeah.
And was that another lockout year or something? Because what's Patrice Bergeron doing there?
Oh yeah. That was another lockout year. Yeah. Bergie played in Lugano with me. Yeah.
So for those listening, and I just love Hockey DB because you can sniff around and find some stuff. But so Patrice Bergeron at 27 comes to the Swiss A League during the lockout year. Glen Metropolit's 38. And Bergie had 29 points in 21 games, by all counts an NHL future Hall of Famer, and you had 64 points that year in 50 games. So that's a testament to the player you obviously are and were your entire career. I think that's pretty special.
Yeah. I got to play with him when he was there. He was on the line, but Bergie, what an ultimate professional. Back to cultures and stuff like that with teams. I got to go back to the Boston Bruins where Zdeno was our captain, Chara and Bergeron. And I remember first day of camp, I kind of, our whole focus was, stop in front of the net, for rebound. I remember just curling off to the corner, lazy. And I remember Big Z comes up. He's like, Metro, you got to stop in front of the net. And it just really stuck with me, the leadership that he had and Bergeron. And I just had to come back to that. You know what I mean? Just it's the details, right. At that level, it's the details. And, he was a great captain. I had a lot of great captains, but Big Z was a good one. So with Bergeron, he was just a natural leader.
I've heard nothing but good things about him. I had Sean Thornton on as a guest, and Thornton was he was a teammate of mine on the Rock there, and obviously he went on to win 2 cups and have a great NHL career. And he couldn't say enough good things about Bergeron and that culture that those guys had. What would be the you mentioned details In my experience with teams that that have done well or that I've even felt comfortable with, and I think that's a big thing too, right? Does everyone on that team feel comfortable and like they're supposed to be there and they're contributing, right? Like I think when everyone has that feeling, like you're gonna have good results. And it feels kind of like the word family gets overused, but it really does genuinely feel like some type of brotherhood, some type of family. Like, what was there anything there, like in that environment that you saw that just like the way they did things was a little different, or encouraged that type of behavior?
I think back to the team atmosphere, the family part. I think it's really important to, as I get into coaching, just really make sure everyone's has a role, feels important with the team. You know what I mean? It's not. I think that's so important. And the teams that I've won on, as I think back and reflect on how the team was, the dressing room, the leadership group, the core was great, but everyone had a role and felt like they're contributing. So even if you're playing your 5-6 minutes a night, they knew they had that the conversation with the coach. Hey, this is your role. Either you accept it or we'll get someone else. But the guys that accepted it, being the best penalty killers, best guys, those are the teams that I win championships with or having great years. Getting close. Montreal, the Canadians. We went to conference finals. Right. Everyone accepted the roles, and it was a tight group, a really tight group.
And like you say, and those roles were celebrated. Like that was one thing that, again, it's just the conversation with Brad, our first conversation, is just ringing in my ears. And he was that 6, 7, 8 minute a night guy, right?
Yeah, he was.
I think he classified himself as an energy guy. He was supposed to go out there, provide some energy, get some hits. And he said, like in that role, Forsberg would come to him after the game, or Blakey, or Sakic, or whoever, right, and make him feel like those 7 minutes were vital to their win that night, and he said that doesn't happen all the time, right? So him in those 7 minutes, he felt like he was a piece of that puzzle, right? Where very easily in other teams he could feel left behind or not included or not important, right? And I think that's where for those listening, and you want to be a leader, or if you're in a position where you're getting a lot of minutes, just be a good human being, right? Like be a good human, right? Like be outside yourself and let other people know that they're valued. And again, grateful, right? Grateful for their contribution. And I mean, big things can happen in that environment.
Well, I just realized too, those guys are just as important as the guys that are scoring goals, right? You know what I mean? Those guys, they're a big part of the puzzle, right? They're blocking shots, they're eating pucks, they're doing what they have to do, right? I mean, that's kind of what I'm trying to really focus in on now that I'm the assistant coach role over here, right? I'm really watching a lot of videos with the guys, and I've been fortunate enough where I can try to watch video with them, and through my eyes, with all the roles that I've played, what I see, what he could have done differently, or and we talk about, we discuss it, and I let him know, don't be down. The coach knows your value for the team, and I just try to lift him up because I know how I felt. Because I've been through every situation.
Right.
So, but I'm really enjoying that part of the game as well. Being able to be there. It's a fine line though, right? I'm with the coaching staff. I'm just trying to find my way. I'm trying to be authentic as I can be. Yep. Be open with them, and just let them know I do care. I care for them, and I want the best for them. And ultimately, that's going to be the best for our team.
Yeah, I think that's super well said, and I think that is a part that I think was missing during our run, or at least mine. I left a little earlier than you, but it was starting to transition, and just meaning like the care factor. You used the word asset, I think, earlier. Some teams you were an asset, and in other teams you were a human being that happened to be a hockey player. And I think we remembered both sides of it, right? The places where you felt cared for, and there was a little bit of empathy, and you were allowed to be human. You remember those interactions and those coaches, because damn, you wanted to play well for them. And that's the one thing I remember with Bruce Boudreau, who has a job again, and I don't want to demean Bruce Boudreau because there's nothing to demean, but he was not the best X's and O's guy he didn't rank up there even close. But what he did do great was made you feel welcome, and he made you feel important as a person, right? He was interested in me. He was interested in his players, right? And because he was interested, I felt that he built that trust, and you wanted to go to bat for him. You wanted to play well for him. So it's just interesting. I think that's where coaching is headed, and I think the more players are feel valued, the more they feel trusted, the more they're going to give. You know, it's not just the jump and they say how high anymore, right? When it was you and I, right? They got to buy in. So I think that you're, and not that you need my endorsement, but I think you're doing it the right way, definitely, right? Like by caring about these guys, you care about them and they're going to feel it, and then they're going to give you more.
Yeah, and I think too, Jay, with us growing up in our hockey adventures too, the assistant coach were really big people, part of my growth. Those were the guys that I leaned on, I talked to, and I remember how important they were to me. Not necessarily the head coach. I mean, they were the figure. You know what I mean? Back to your points, X's and O's and stuff. I mean, Kirk Muller was that for me in Montreal, and I can go on. Down in the minors, there's Glenn Hanlon, but it was just the guys that stood out and helped me were the assistant coaches that you could bounce stuff off of and know that they could trust you and you can help them and they earn your respect.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the one I remember too is Lindy Ruff. Lindy was always the guy that would stay out after practice when I was in Florida, and he'd be the one working on your game with you, and he'd also be the guy that was on the plane, and he'd be playing cards with us at the back of the plane. And I don't know if the coaches can do that anymore or not.
Yeah.
But, he was definitely that the intermediary between the head guy, right? And there was a comfort level that you could have with those guys that you didn't otherwise, but. You have to trust them, right? That's the whole thing with that. It's like you got to feel like if you're on guard all the time as a player and you're not sure, what the motive is or where this is coming from, like you kind of are always checking over your shoulder, weren't you? Like at least I felt I was. Like I was never really like in an environment where I was like, okay, I feel good here, like I feel comfortable. But boy, when you do find that, that's probably when you play your best hockey.
Yep, I had that in Boston. I had that in Montreal. I say Washington, Glenn Hanlon, but he was that for me down in Portland, Maine. But up in NHL, it was Tim Army and Tim Hunter. Tim Hunter was still kind of old school, assistant coach, old school, and then Tim Army, he was just assistant coach there type thing, But
do you have
like you said,
a couple just to end off, and I sometimes I forget and I get mad, but like you mentioned, coaches that had an impact. Any players? Cause I think that players sometimes forget, regardless of what spot they are in their career, whether you're an older guy or whether you're even just an older guy in a junior team, right? That you can really impact and have a positive impact, lasting impact on others. Is there anyone that you remember through your pro career or otherwise that really influenced you and helped guide you?
Wow, I have so many. It's hard to pinpoint one. I just remember some of the leaders like Scott Mellenby. Even though I was in Atlanta, he was another captain. I was just salt of the earth. Invite you out for dinners on the road where you felt like you're not that guy, But he really stuck out in my mind. There's been great teammates. Sean Thornton. The year when you feel like you're part of a team, those are the years you remember the most. You know what I mean? Like.
And what are those
Montreal
gestures? I mean, I remember 30 talking about that, and he said that idea was really important to him. So he almost put it upon himself to make sure that there was a nucleus, or not even a nucleus, but an overall general feeling of inclusion, right? That he went out of his way to make sure that guys get stuff, right? Is it as simple as that? Like somebody inviting somebody for lunch? Is it those small gestures?
Yeah, man, it all adds up, right? You get to know each other better, right? But the game's changing too. I think it's like everyone's kind of like they all just separate. I've been fortunate enough here this year where we're in this Champions League game, so we're forced to go to different countries and have some time together. So it's really helped our team here. But besides that, it's usually guys they leave right away. Right. So the game's changing a little bit that way.
Yeah. I remember I told a story actually just to some in this culture class that I did the other day for some coaches here locally, and I told the story of like the last NHL camp I went to was the Detroit Red Wings. Right? I played in Germany. I ended up going to Japan, and kind of got that passion and my zest for hockey back again, and kind of believed in myself again. I'm like, I should be in the NHL. Like I got to give this another kick at that. Yeah. That was where my belief was at. And Mike Babcock was a coach in Detroit at the time, and Ken Holland was a local guy here in Vernon that was the GM. And got my agent to talk to them, had some personal conversations. Said, yeah, we want you to come to camp. Right, come to camp. We'll give you an honest shot. And anyways, I ended up getting hurt there, like second day of camp, and I ended up playing one exhibition game. And although I still think I probably could have made it, I couldn't make it at 60%. That's for sure. So it just didn't work out, right? But the story is that I walked in, like, this was at a point in my career where no one knew who I was, right? Like I wasn't an AHL goal scoring leader anymore. I wasn't a second rounder. I wasn't a world junior gold medalist, right? Like I was I was not a prospect. I was a suspect, right? So like I walked into that environment, this perennial winning Stanley Cup type environment, and no one knew who I was. And like the very first day in the locker room, Chris Chelios walks across the locker room to, this 30-year-old guy sitting there and invites me out to his chili bar in Detroit, right? He wants to come take a chili bar. And from that moment, like it was the most impressive experience as far as like feeling like what culture feels like in a place where you feel comfortable, you feel like you can be a contributor, you feel valuable. And it was like that the whole time, from Thomas Holstrom inviting me to golf to Dominic Hasek sitting at the front of the bus talking my ear off for 30 minutes to, it was just throughout the organization, these guys were good people. I mean, and really, and they were about each other, not about themselves. And I just loved like that was my last impact, because in other places it wasn't like that, as we already talked about. You know what I mean? Like non-playoff teams, teams that were divided, teams who had little cliques, older guys, younger guys. Detroit was not like that at all. And really it boiled down to the people and the interaction. So I mean, I just
check your ego at the door, right? Check your ego at the door. Yeah.
Exactly.
There
was I mean, I'm sure you saw that too. Like there was teams that I was on. I won't name any names, but like, I'm a third line right winger, and there's no way the second line right winger is helping me with anything like getting the pucks off the wall or asking me a question or, showing me a 10-year guy, because I could take his job. And that was and I understood that, right? It's pro hockey. But in Detroit, like that, guess who Maltby and Draper are working with? Darren Helm. Right. Telling them how to do face-offs. You know what I mean? Like it was just a different, it was a different feeling there about what it took to win, right? And those guys knew that there was a spot. Kenny would have a spot for him. Like they were going to get taken care of as long as they took care of the group. And boy, an 18-year-old Darren Helm walking in there, feeling comfortable, is a hell of a lot different place to break into the league than everyone kind of pushing you out, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I felt that at an older age too. There was a few guys in Washington where I'm so happy. My first game, I'm in. Played in Buffalo. I scored on Hasek my first exhibition game. My family from Toronto comes in. I told a certain guy in the room, "Hey, I can't find the PR guy, but I know the bus is leaving to go to the airport to go back to Washington. But I got to see my mom and see my family." He's like, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll hold the bus for you. I'll tell the guy." Sure enough, no one comes and gets me. I go back. The bus is gone. It's gone to the airport. Bill Zito's there. Bill Zito, my agent. He's like, "What the fuck? What the buzz?" Right? He drives me out there. I rush out there. I get on the plane. I'm like, I was like, oh man. So back to your point, right? And he was a forward, but I would never do that. I would never do that. I wouldn't do that. Yeah. I was always the guy wanting to help our teammates. I never felt threatened. I always wanted what was best for the team, and and that goes. You put just bring in good people. Yeah. If you're a good hockey player, good, do your research and you'll find the good people. Bring in good people.
What a great way to end. I think that's a great way to stop. We've already gone over, but I think that's such an awesome lesson. And it's a lesson because, you're a good hockey player, buddy, but you played till you're 41 and you don't do that being an asshole.
Yeah.
No, but for real, right? You don't because the hockey world's small enough that people know, right? And you can get by in talent for so long, but you can't have a 22-year career and be like that. You got to have other people think about other people first, and be a good human, as we've been talking about. And boy, I'm such a champion for creating good little humans who want to be good humans and want to help each other out. Because when I'm talking with these coaches now and these scouts, because culture isn't a buzzword anymore, and they're really, really trying to create good locker rooms, right? With caring good locker rooms, it's a competitive advantage, man.
For sure,
a competitive advantage on an individual level to actually care about other people, and gives you more chances, gives you a longer career. There's so many things that happen to it, but again, it has to be
Mhm.
authentic. But I do think it's something that can be learned. Like it has to be authentic,
Yes.
but I do
Yeah.
think it's something that can be learned because we're usually so worried about ourselves, and where we're at and where our development is, and how many points I got last night. Like that's the natural tendency, but we can get outside of that. Man, like it
Mhm.
really does open up a lot of opportunities. So thank you for ending with
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I think that's fantastic. You've been an amazing guest. I love your story. Always been a massive fan, Metro,
Yeah, man.
and I love what you're doing there. So thanks so much for being here.
I appreciate it. Keep doing the great work too, Jay.
Thanks, boss.
See you guys.
Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of our conversation. I really thought that conversation built momentum as we went. I hadn't recorded in a while, and I kind of felt myself off a little bit at the beginning. But I really thought that we started to move and shake through that interview with Glen. His story, it's really remarkable. Like I can't say that enough. Like how being in that environment, being in an AHL environment, and me never having played in the United Hockey League or the East Coast Hockey League, none of these, I guess you would call lower tiered professional leagues. I only saw it through the lens of an AHL player, and I would see the guys that would either have PTOs or two-way deals from the AHL to the East Coast League, or that would get up and get called up from the East Coast League if somebody was hurt. And it is hard. It's hard enough to get from the AHL to the NHL and become a regular, but to get out of the East Coast Hockey League or the United Hockey League or wherever some of these players go to establish yourself as an AHL guy, because there's so many players that are under NHL deals that these teams have invested money in. They've invested time in and resources in, and they want their players to be the ones that are the players for them in the future, whether it be at the AHL level or the NHL level. And to be an undrafted guy, to be a free agent, to just be so good that you have earned your spot in the next place and then in the next place. I mean, like I said, I just can't say enough about what Glen was able to accomplish, and at the age he was able to accomplish it. I mean, to be able to do what he did in his 30s, to become an NHL regular and have NHL one-way deals, like it's so impressive to me. His longevity and his persistence and his he just wouldn't go away. He had to be so consistent to make that happen, because there's so many people lining up telling him that he's not good enough, or telling him that, oh, I knew he wasn't ready, or this or that. He's not getting second chances. So what an amazing, inspiring story, not to mention where he came from, as far as the projects, as he called it, from a single parent home in and out of foster homes. We didn't talk about his brother, and I mean, I guess the cat's out of the bag at this point because I just mentioned it, but his brother spent 16 years in jail. Same environment, right? One guy ends up in the NHL being a pro hockey player, one guy ends up in jail. And we didn't even get into that, and Glen actually mentioned off the air that, geez, we didn't even talk about that. Maybe that's for part 2. So, like, I tried to dive in there, and I think we did a pretty good job of covering that, and the choices that Glen was forced with, and the choices that he was able to make in really hard times and in really hard moments that kept his head above water and kept him enough on the straight and narrow to allow himself the opportunity to have this hockey career. But we all have choices, right? We're not all from the projects. We're not all from single family homes, and some of us are from families that have good sources of income, and there's a roof over our heads, and we know we're safe and we're protected. But we always have choices on an individual level about how we are going to pursue our goals and our dreams. And the more that we can dial those choices in to support our goals and dreams, the better we are. And that is one thing that I'm super passionate about helping players with. And for Glen, he was holding the compass in his own hand. He had to make these choices, seeing these things around him that were normal. A lot of his life was normalized from where his upbringing was, but he chose to make different options. He chose a different direction, and I just find that really, really inspiring as well. To get to where he got to from his humble beginnings is an absolute fantastic story, and I hope it's one that really motivates young players out there. And we use that word gratitude a lot during the podcast, but to be grateful of your situation, to be grateful for what you have in front of you, the team you're able to play on, the skates you're able to put on your feet, the practice that you get to go to. For Glen, he was playing for years without a real team. For years without a real team. Grateful for sleeping at essentially the bus driver's feet on the stairs of the bus, being a healthy scratch, right? Finding gratitude in those moments is a powerful, powerful tool. So remember, what you make of the moment, the meaning you give whatever moment you're going through in your life or in your hockey journey, there is a choice that's going to help align with your goal of being a player, and there's going to be a personal choice that's going to take you off track, that's going to get you farther away from that goal. So do your best to help align, do your best to work on that inner circle, get the support that you need, and yeah, keep fighting. Play hard, everybody, and keep your head up.